Everybody ready? Good morning, everybody. It is 8:33 a.m. on this wonderful December the 11th, 2018. If you would all please sit down and double check your cell phones to make sure they are all on silent. And with that, we will start off with a prayer this morning. Marcella, would you like to come forward and lead us in prayer, please?
All my brothers
Morning.
and sisters, let's pray. Precious Father in heaven, in the name of Jesus, we come before you, your holy presence, your counsel and favor over today's city council meeting. We ask that you please have mercy and incline thy ear and hear our prayer. We honor, worship, and praise your holy name. It is written in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people which are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sins and heal their land. Holy Father, forgive us of any and all sins that may be in our lives, and let nothing hinder our prayers from being acceptable to you. I ask you to let the business that's about to be conducted today be done in a way that will glorify you and be edifying to all. We ask for your blessings over our mayor, Brenda Gunter, the city Angelo council, and every department head. Again, it is written, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. So thank you, Holy Father, for hearing us, and we pray that your will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Let your blessings rest upon everyone in attendance today, in the matchless, holy, and wonderful name, Jesus Christ, our Lord and our Savior. Amen and amen.
Amen. This morning, we are honored to have our San Angelo Catholic School fifth graders here to say our pledges. If you will come forward and join me right up here. And today we have Truett Bailey, we have Bethany Gonzalez, we have Lucas Lopez, and we have Marisol Rios. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to let you take it and go with it, okay? We're going to start with this flag. I pledge allegiance
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
This morning, we have a recognition of the city's finance department. Tina, do your group want to come forward? The annual audit report produced by the city's finance department has for the fifth straight year earned national accolades. The 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report has been awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. The award is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting. The GFOA said its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. The city's comprehensive annual financial report is the yearly financial audit of the city conducted by external auditors and approved by the city council. The GFOA lauded the report for the fiscal year that ended September 30th, 2017. In doing so, it said it demonstrates, quote, a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story, end of quote. Our citizens want assurances their city government manages their tax dollars with the utmost efficiency, effectiveness, and transparency. Earning this honor 5 years in a row gives the public a high level of assurance that is indeed the case. Interested taxpayers are invited and encouraged to go to the city's website to read our award-winning audit report. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud the City of San Angelo Finance Department for its achievement and positive determination to make a difference in our community and its municipal government. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We are very pleased to receive this award for the 5th year in a row, and we do invite our public to visit our webpage at any time. We have a transparency page on the city's website, and we also invite any questions you may have by phone or email. Thank you.
Next, we have recognition of the city's public information officers, Anthony Wilson and Brian. Okay.
Trust her with that, Brian?
The city's award-winning Public Information Office has won more awards. The Texas Association of Telecommunications Officers and Advisors honored our Public Information Office's video production efforts with 8 statewide awards at its recent conference. That trophy haul included 2 first-place recognitions and 3rd place for overall excellence for SATV, the city's government access channel. First-place awards were awarded for the quote, Clocked In series that follows public servants as they go about their jobs, and for a recruitment video for the SAPD. Videos that promoted cat adoptions, Fort Concho's 150th anniversary, the July 3rd Pops concert, and Great Places to Swim in San Angelo earned 2nd place trophies. A video highlighting the Nature Center as a hidden gem took a 3rd place award. The Emmy Award-winning Shattered Dreams also won a 1st place award in the annual competition of the National Association of Telecommunications Officers of America. With each of these productions, the Public Information Office used video to engage citizens in their government in fun and meaningful ways. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud the City of San Angelo Public Information Office for its achievement and positive determination to make a difference in our community and its municipal government. Congratulations, job well done.
He's usually the man with the words. I'm going to take this moment to say thank you to all of our staff, because one of my favorite things that we get to do is we get to tell the story of our staff and all the amazing jobs that they do, and they trust us to do that. And so I just want to say thank you for trusting us and allowing us to tell your story. So thank you.
I want to start this morning's meeting off thanking the San Angelo Support for Veterans and Wounded Warriors of San Angelo for the incredible weekend we had this past weekend. We had 18 wounded warriors who were here and enjoyed the support and a lot of great hunting out on local ranches. So thank you all for putting that together and helping us celebrate our military. We are open for public comment. Issues of items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, begin by stating their name, and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Council members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The council takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. Do I have anyone who would like to come forward and offer some public comment?
Good morning, Mayor, Council, and all represented here today. I'm Diane Bays. I'm the Vice President of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we have an announcement to make, and normally I would put this on the agenda, but I was told by the people issuing this award that they would probably have to shoot me. So I am going to share this with you today. For the past probably 8 months, the CVB has been working with Fort Concho, Downtown San Angelo Inc., Stock Show and Rodeo, and Texas Sports Trail region on an application for True West magazine. And we got the release today, and I'm just going to share this with you. For more than 150 years, San Angelo, Texas has been a key city in West Texas. It hosted an army post. It was a stopping point on the cattle trails. It was a regional center for oil booms. It was a place where history happened and where it's celebrated today. That is one reason San Angelo is number 2 among the True West magazine's 2019 Top 10 Western Towns. The one city who beat us was Tombstone, Arizona, but we beat Deadwood and Dodge City, so we're pretty excited about that. We will be featured in the February 2019 issue that hits newsstands yesterday, which is why I couldn't share this with you. Just to give you a little bit of information, San Angelo offers visitors lots of Western-themed fun, beginning at Fort Concho, the National Historic Landmark. Founded in 1867, the fort had 40 buildings and covered some 1,600 acres. Today, the landmark has 23 original and restored structures and offers tours to see period furnishings, artillery, exhibits, and artifacts from frontier life. San Angelo's Western heritage comes alive during National Cowboy Day, held at the fort in July, and through downtown's historic murals. See first-class paintings, ceramics, and sculptures at the San Angelo Museum of Fine Arts. And the San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeos, February's bust-out party, not my words, ongoing since 1932. San Angelo is truly the history of West Texas, says True West executive editor Bob Bell. From the indigenous tribes who lived there for thousands of years to the brief Spanish settlement to the arrival of the settlers and the Army, this is a place with a rich history and heritage, and it does a remarkable job of celebrating all of them. San Angelo truly deserves a designation as a top Western town. This is the 14th year True West has presented this annual award. Editors base their selection on criteria demonstrating how each town has preserved its history through old buildings, museums, and other institutions, events, and promotions of historic resources. So we're very proud of this. It was a team effort, and I thought the council and the community would be very excited to be able to share this award.
Thank you. Congratulations, that's fabulous. Any other further public comment? If so, come forward.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Mayor. My name is Renetta Jordan, and I am here for the MLK musical that we will be having February the 23rd, 2019. This is something that's never been done here in San Angelo before, and it will be at the Murphy Performance Hall, the city of San Angelo. It's a free event, and it says, "Come one, come all," to the MLK musical. And the theme is when we all get to heaven. So I want to invite everyone to come out and support us on this. It is a free event, and we want you all to be with us. And I appreciate you all having me here, and God bless all of you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Renetta.
Good morning, Council. I'm Anthony Wilson, your Public Information Officer. This is the last time that we'll be meeting before the holidays, and so I just wanted our citizens to be aware of some changes to our schedules as a result of the holidays. City offices will be closed on December 24th and 25th and on January 1st. And we will have garbage collection on New Year's Day, January 1st. However, trash collection will be delayed one day from December 25th through the 29th. So customers who normally get their service on Tuesday will be getting it on Wednesday. Wednesday customers will be getting it on Thursday, and so forth through that Saturday. So if people want more information, I would commend our website. It's costatx.us/news.
Thank you. Further public comment? With no further public comment, we will move into our consent agenda. I'm going to start with Billy and ask if there's anything she wants to pull from the consent agenda.
Nothing, ma'am.
Lane? L. Lucy?
Item F.
Harry?
M&O.
Tom?
Nothing to pull.
You want to go ahead and have us pull item in? Okay, all righty. And Tommy?
No, ma'am.
Okay. With that, we are going to pull items F, L, M, N, and O. Do I have a motion from council to approve all items on the consent agenda with the exception of those that I have just listed?
So moved.
Billy has moved, Lane has seconded. Is there any public comment? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda items with exceptions of F, L, M, N, and O, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, consent agenda passes 7-0. We will start by item F. Item,
Vote on N?
huh?
Aren't we going to vote on N now?
Well, we can do each, because we're going to, that item N has been approved, has been pulled. So we can start with item N if you would like to. Okay, so item N, Tom, you're pulling yourself from voting on this
I'm
item.
going to recuse myself from item N.
Okay, thank you. So item N is consider approving the following naming rights agreements for the San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo Association Incorporated. 1, City of San Angelo Fairgrounds Livestock Building Number 2 and Livestock Sale Pavilion with G&G Investments Incorporated. Item 2, City of San Angelo Fairground Exhibit Building with First Financial Bank Shares Incorporated. Teresa, are there any
Carl,
questions,
would you like to speak on it?
comments?
I'll let Carl speak on this item.
Just right quick, as per city council policy, naming rights, the San Angelo Stock Show Rodeo Association has the freedom to get naming rights for their facilities at the fairgrounds. And under the council policy, those negotiated naming rights agreements must come to city council for endorsement, for approval.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for Carl on item N?
To approve.
Second.
Is there any public comment concerning item N?
Morning.
Morning.
End of the year. Steve Hampton here. I had questions on N. What are the financial, how does that, there was some information in the other notes that tells how it breaks down, but I didn't quite understand it. If you could let us know how that money is divvied up on care and income.
Carl or
Comment on that,
Teresa?
but not vote?
Huh?
Can I comment but not vote?
Yes, Carl.
All the revenue goes to the San Angelo Stock Show Rodeo Association for their uses. The split out, there's a 75-25% split out. Let's see. 25% may be used by the association and 75% utilized strictly for maintenance and upkeep of the fairgrounds.
And also to add to that, just to note, in the agreement with the stock show, they actually maintain, the city owns the land, but the stock show maintains all of those grounds and buildings on their own. So they use this to assist with that, but at the end of the day, they're the ones maintaining it totally.
Correct.
Thank you. Any further public comment on item N? With no further public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor of approving item N, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We will move back and now do item L, which is consider ratifying a resolution by COSA DC authorizing the use of sales and use tax funds in an amount not to exceed $49,225 to provide an economic development incentive to U.S. Customs and Border Protection Air and Marine Operations, which is CBPAMO, with participation by the City of San Angelo. Guy?
Guy Andrews, Director of Economic Development for the City of San Angelo Development Corporation. I'd like to just preface the comments in regard to this with saying that we have had some reorganization within the COSA DC and have appointed Bob Schneeman as our project manager for economic development in the COSA DC. And I'm going to allow Bob to address these items since he's worked diligently on them.
Good morning. As Guy said, I'm Bob Schneeman with the city's Economic Development Department. Actually, these two items, L and M, are related to the same project, and this may seem like a familiar project to council. You may recall that we originally were going to do a project where we were going to incentivize Customs and Border Patrol Air and Marine Operations by constructing some foundations for some of their radar equipment and also do some interior renovations to the building. In working with them, this is actually kind of a neat thing, if you will. The federal government has decided to fund those improvements, both the foundations and installation of the antennas and also the improvements to the inside of the building. So in an effort to continue working with Customs and Border Patrol, we said, well, what else can we do? And this project is a slight shift. We're going to be paving some additional areas out there for additional ramp space for the aircraft, and we're also going to be installing some drainage improvements and providing a foundation under this project, the foundation design for some needed storage that they have on the north side of their hangar. The project, from an economic development standpoint, is intended to create a minimum of 60 new jobs, and those jobs will average about $120,000 per year. And this is, I think it's a really good indication that Border Patrol intends to come here and stay here. They're spending their own money out of their own capital improvement funds, if you will, to do some of this work. So we're just able to overall make it a better project.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read item M then, because I think they're one and the same conversation. So item M was consider ratifying a resolution by COSA DC authorizing the board president to execute a memorandum of understanding with the City of San Angelo for planning and design services for a hangar and related infrastructure improvements to municipal airport property utilized by U.S. Customs and Border Protection Air and Marine Operations.
And this item is required because all the construction is going to take place on airport property. Therefore, the improvements will belong to the airport. So there will be a contract between the city and the consultant to do the design work, and then the memorandum of understanding is between COSA DC and the city because we have to have, by state law, a performance agreement with the sort of receiving party, if you will, and this is going through the city.
Do I have questions from council?
I pulled this. Bob, first, thank you for your diligent efforts. It's fantastic that you're doing this for our airport and for our Border Patrol. I had no negative concerns, but the thing that I wanted you to enlighten on was the 62 high-paying jobs of 120 bringing here into San Angelo and the efforts that this will provide for it. And so,
And they actually anticipate there'll be a lot more spin-off jobs of other people coming in for training and that sort of thing, so.
We have, or will, I'm assuming, make sure that we and go into all the details with the group that we've hired to put together the master development plan for the airport, so they're aware early on about what's happening here, so that we don't get down the road and no one understand that we're not talking to each other. So we want to make sure everyone's on the same page.
We're actually using the same consultant for this as we are for the master plan, so it all sort of melds together.
Great, thank you. Do I have further questions from council? Harry?
Can we vote on both of them, or do we have to vote on them separate?
As long as your motion is to include both of them, you can take one vote.
I'll make a motion that we approve item L and item M as presented.
Second.
With that, do we have any public comment on item L or item M? With no public comment, we will take a vote on the combined L and M. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, it passes 7-0. Yeah, I'm going to do it now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item F, consider authorizing the city manager to enter into a 5-year extension of the current grazing and agricultural lease for the following properties located in the area commonly known as, quote, City Farm, with an understanding at the end of the 5-year term, the properties will be placed for lease for highest sealed bid. 888 acres shown as track 1 on the attached Exhibit A. 294 acres shown as track 2 on the attached Exhibit A. And item 3, 1,266 acres shown as track 3 on the attached Exhibit A. Cindy?
Ms. Lucy, did you have a question on
No,
that?
I wanted you to explain a little bit about this. And then if so, if you had a criteria that you used to pick these acres, how did you go about it? Or how did we come at the end with these acres?
These acres have currently been leased by the current tenant in the past, and so the tenants requested that they could be able to continue to do a lease of the property. I will tell you, in the past, we have executed 10-year leases, but because we have had some citizens request the opportunity to be able to bid on these properties, we have notified the tenant that at the end of 5 years, then all of the properties, all the city farm leases will be put out for highest sealed bid.
Okay, that's what I needed to know, and I wanted the public to know. Thank you
Yes,
so
ma'am.
much.
Thank you.
Billy, would you please?
Cindy, how many tenants do we currently have leasing these properties?
We have 7 tenants that lease the property commonly known as City Farm.
Okay. And do they pay varying lease amounts, or do they pay all the same lease amount?
They have varying lease amounts. Some of the properties are strictly grazing leases, so those tenants do pay less than someone who leases for a dry land crop. These 3 tenants are dry land crop and also have some grazing leases, so their lease rate is actually a little bit higher than even the 2017 by Texas Farm Bureau. 2017 lease rates, these tenants are paying higher than the average within the state of Texas.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Lane, did you have a comment or
Yes,
question?
ma'am. What is the financial impact per track?
For
Citizen asking for this.
the first track, which is 888 acres, they will commence their lease at $48,840 a year. That will include a 2% increase each year for the next 5 years. The 294-acre tract, they will start their yearly lease rate at $16,170, again with a 2% yearly increase. And the third tract, the 1,266 acres, their yearly lease rate will commence at $69,630, again with a 2% increase each year over the next 5 years.
Have these been increased from our previous agreement?
They have not. They actually went down some because the yearly, the average for grazing and dry land crop has gone down. So we did reduce it. We based it on the 2016 lease to another tenant. So we are trying to stay consistent in our yearly lease rates. But
It's not like a
again,
national average. Is that what we
This is
based
state
on?
of Texas
State of
average.
Texas.
Yes, sir. And again, we will put them all out for bids in 5 years so that it's going to be a competitive bidding at that point.
Thank you.
Do I have any further questions from council? With no further questions from council,
I move to approve as presented.
any public comment? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor of item F, 1, 2, and 3, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, item F passes 7-0. We will now go to item O, which is consider approving a memorandum of understanding for joint curatorial lab and storage space between the City of San Angelo and the San Angelo Museum of Fine Arts, and authorizing the city manager to execute all related documents. Bob, you're on.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
Yes, Christmas at Fort Concho was wet. Let's get that out of the way.
Was it cold?
It was cold, but it was not icy or snowy, so for these small favors, we are grateful.
So how do the attendance numbers look compared to previous years?
My accountants are still crunching numbers, but in the words of the modern art critic, it wasn't as bad as it looks. Slow-moving joke. As many of you may know, the Art Museum and the Fort go back to the beginning of their time. The Art Museum was founded at Fort Concho back in the early 1980s, and indeed its first home was the Quartermaster Building. They, of course, outgrew that and built that impressive edifice up the road. But the Art Museum and the Fort have remained joined together in a variety of projects over the years. You can honestly say that we are partners in many things, and this is a continuation of that. There's 10,000 square feet of unused space in the Chase State Office Building. It was never used or filled in the original 1995 creation of the State Office Building, nor in the expansion since then. It has remained unused and fallow in those 20 years, and frankly, I don't think there's going to be, in the near future, any demand by any state agencies for that land or for that space. There was, as some will recall, 10 years ago, a project for expansion, but that was in 2008, and you may recall what happened in 2008. The economy tanked and the state pulled away, and there hasn't been any demand for that space since, except for a small agency request for 1,000 square feet, which we're working on, which may or may not occur. I think this is a valuable partnership for the Fort and the Art Museum that will add value to both organizations and use this space in the way for generations to come for curatorial and for storage space for both of our expanding collections. One of the secrets of a museum that most folks don't know is that we collect stuff. And it's sort of whoever has the most stuff wins. And Howard and I are sort of doing the same thing. We both have expanding collections. We both need more space. We both need more good space to take care of our stuff. This is an ideal situation. The agreement before you lays out a pretty simple task. Howard is willing, with his board and staff, to raise the funds to fix this space out in a manner that will meet their needs and ours. Both parties will be responsible for furnishing their own spaces. Both parties will be responsible on a pro rata agreement to take care of maintenance and utilities. I really see this as something that will benefit both of our organizations decades after both of us have moved on. And if you have any questions on this, I stand ready to answer.
Does council have a question or comment they would like to offer? Harry?
Just a real quick comment. I'm the one that asked us to be pulled, and what I wanted to do was what Bob just did. Give the citizens an idea of why this partnership is important and why we need to go forward with this. So move to approve as presented.
Is there any public comment on item O? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 7-0.
We thank you, and we'll keep you posted.
Thank you. With item O being approved, that completes approval of all of the consent agenda items. So we will move into the regular agenda, starting with item A. Consider resolution in support of the Texas Municipal League's campaign, Our Home, Our Decisions, to raise awareness of the state of Texas eroding the ability of local communities to develop local solutions to local problems. Do we have a video?
We do have a video.
And I'm sure we have sound. It's very impactful without the sound. It tells a story through pictures.
It does.
Well, that's, oh, there we go.
All across the state, in more than 1,000 cities and towns, Texans for decades have been coming together to identify local needs and develop solutions that fit the unique character of their community.
I love it here, and Fort Stockton's a neat place. We've got a problem with plastic bags. The wind blows, the bags, they get stuck on the fence, on the cactus. We had them in the sewer plant. We talked with ranchers, and they said, yes, plastic bags are an issue with livestock. They were just a nuisance. They cost a lot of money. Finally, we found out that what worked for Fort Stockton was a bag ban.
We're becoming a big tourist town now, and so short-term rentals became an issue. Not all short-term rentals were bad, but some of those short-term rentals were very problematic, were big parties and drugs and other kinds of illicit behaviors occurring in our neighborhood next door to families with kids. Was a state bureaucrat going to be able to deal with that?
Local issues take local solutions. It takes the local government understanding those needs and those challenges and working together to address those challenges.
It's proven that when we do make our local decisions for our very diverse needs that we have, that we have a track record of doing great things.
Now, some state politicians in Austin want to take away our ability to solve our own problems and make our own decisions. They want to put one-size-fits-all handcuffs on local budgets for police and fire protection, street repairs, trash collection, and all the other local services you depend on every day.
If they take away local control, we're going to tell you what to do with your house or your property. So it's way beyond a bag ban. Local control covers a variety of issues.
Texas is a big state. I've done projects in Amarillo and Lubbock, Sweetwater, Roscoe, Austin. All of them are different. The geography's different, the climates are different, and the local governments are better suited to be able to address those differences than the state.
When those decisions are made at the local level, the citizens have the opportunity to really be a part of that process, and in the end, the result will be a positive outcome.
Stay out of our business. Capital, we want to be your partner. When we independently make our decisions in economic development, jobs flourish. Local decisions work.
Mayor, we have a resolution and that we're going to ask that City Council does approve. This is an item that Texas Municipal League is campaigning for, and we feel it's really important that we do address our home, our decision, because the decisions that we have to make, a lot of times, of course, before we make those decisions, our citizens have a lot of input. They show up at City Council meetings and they come up to the podium and let us know exactly what they think about some of the laws we're passing. Our state legislators that meet every couple of years more and more are starting to want to interfere in that process. And we just want to make sure that we keep our decisions here locally, Mayor. And that's something, again, that is very important to all of us.
We realize that there are many federal and state mandates that we don't have a lot of voice on, but are expected to execute within the funds that we have, regardless of whether we might have the funds to actually ensure that the mandates are followed. That being said, what we really want to make sure happens is those things outside of the mandates, or that the mandates are kept to a minimum so that we can make sure that this community is truly our community, a community that is supported by the citizens' wishes, dreams, and vision for the future. We don't want to know that Austin has a vision for Austin that we must live by, look like, and support. I don't believe everyone in Austin understands what happens in West Texas, what happens in San Angelo, or what happens in any of the other cities that might be in West Texas. We are proud of our city. We believe that we will make the right decisions for our city to ensure that we have a financial future and a city that, in fact, people enjoy living, playing, working, and visiting. Help us by supporting our local council members, city staff, and mayor in making sure that we have a strong voice in what happens here in San Angelo. If we don't take care of our local community, we certainly won't be able to impact the state community or the federal community. The one area where we have strength in our voices is here locally. So thank you for supporting your local community, and thank you for supporting each and every one of us that are here to represent your voice, your home, your decisions. Thank you. Item B.
We need to
What we need to
That is a
do,
resolution.
that is the resolution.
And we need to go ahead and get that approved.
I have a motion from somebody.
We'll move to approve.
Second.
Do we have the resolution to read, or is it just,
We do
I'm
have-
confused?
If I
Who's-
can add to that, though, because this is very substantial, one of the classes that was provided by TML was the Legislative Outlook, and they touched on property taxes, sales tax, impact fees, water, and like the mayor said, of what Austin is trying to take away from our ability. You can't compare Austin and San Antonio to San Angelo on how we need to provide for our own water sources and our property tax rates. A lot of bigger cities can absorb it, we can't, so.
You want me to read it, Mayor?
Go ahead, Tommy.
Okay. A resolution in support of our home, our decisions, whereas the dramatic growth in jobs and population in Texas cities in recent decades is indisputable proof the decisions Texans have made at the local level have produced the kinds of communities where people want to live, work, play, and do business. Whereas year after year, Texas towns and cities lead the nation in the number of companies and people moving here, whereas the success Texas cities have had in attracting people and businesses is the envy of the nation, whereas that success comes with challenges such as the need for more police officers, firefighters, water and sewer lines, trash collection, and all other local services we all depend upon, whereas in Texas, state government provides essentially no funding for city services, leaving it to cities to devise ways to pay for the growing and unique needs within each community, whereas the most important decisions we must make as a community involve the level of services we want, how much our taxpayers and citizenry are willing to pay for them, and how we wish to be governed, and whereas those decisions should be made by city residents and the neighbors they elect to lead their municipal government, and not by legislators who live hundreds of miles away and may never have visited our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of San Angelo, Texas, number one, as Texans, we are proud our state is unlike any other, and the same holds true for our pride in our hometowns. Number two, the unique character of each city is shaped by the priorities and values of the people who live there. Number three, Texans do not want to be told they must conform to one way of thinking or another way of living, whether it comes from Washington or from Austin. Number four, there is one thing Texans can agree upon. We want to continue making our own decisions about our hometowns.
Thank you, Tommy. With that said, we will take a Do I need to take a vote on this? All right, with that, do I have a motion to support the resolution as read?
Move to approve.
We have a motion already on the table and a second. We just need a vote.
All right, with that, is there any public comment?
As you guys, Anthony Wilson, Public Information Officer. As you guys know, and our community knows, we have a terrific partner in State Representative Drew Darby. And he has never once tried to overreach from state level of government into local matters. And I think that's because he once sat in the seats that you're sitting in right now. And so I just wanted to make clear to anybody who might be watching that it's not Representative Darby that we're concerned about at all, because he's been, as I said, a terrific partner. It's his other 149 colleagues in the House of Representatives, and then his peers in the state Senate and all those others in the State House. So while we have the opportunity, I just wanted to voice our support and our appreciation for all the good work that Representative Darby does on behalf of the city of San Angelo.
Thank you, Anthony. That was an important point to make. Thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, Bruce Partain, President and CEO of the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce. I just want to applaud the City Council for considering this and taking a stand, and to let you know that business owners in San Angelo appreciate the very careful consideration that's played by Costa DC and then the City Council Planning and Zoning on economic development incentives. It is one of the tools in our toolbox, and it is one of the items that is threatened by state mandates that would try to do one size fits all. So I think you see that San Angelo has been very successful with this kind of local control, and we encourage you to stand up for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have further public comment? With no further public comment, we will now take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution in support of Our Home, Our Decisions passes 7-0. Item B, discussion and action on the following. 1, second reading and public hearing of an ordinance amending Chapter 11, Article 11.03 of the San Angelo Code of Ordinances, including adopting stormwater quality provisions. And 2, adoption of illicit discharge policy. And Shannon, you're on.
Thank you. I'm just going to go over a brief overview of what the last council meeting represented. Essentially, the overview was that the requirement for having to implement the ordinance for illicit discharges and spills. It's a federal and state mandate. The ordinance addresses illicit discharges and offers a general prohibition for those that may not be mentioned in illicit discharges. And also, it meets the minimum requirements that we're required to meet per federal and state government. Per council recommendation, it was asked that we met with our subcommittee members one more time to address some questions that came up during the last council meeting. At that time, we offered about a week to submit in writing those questions so that we had a week to respond. So on November 27th, that was the final day that questions could be submitted in writing. Then we had a subcommittee meeting on December 4th to address those further questions and talk about a little bit about more questions that came up as the meeting progressed. And then finally, we finished our proposed stormwater quality ordinance where we addressed those questions and added some things on December 5th, 2018. During the subcommittee meeting, we addressed 12 questions that were submitted in writing, and we also discussed our internal illicit discharge program that actually sets the benchmarks for compliance. Our subcommittee meeting outcome also added some language for some questions regarding appeals process. We didn't have that in the original document that was provided, so that's how the first reading and the second reading have changed. And then also we added some more language on how the process of how we were going to implement a lien on a property. During one of the questions that was asked was to provide a matrix that kind of showed what the TCEQ state federal permit that we follow and how we met that in this proposed ordinance. This is just an overview. If you'd like a copy of that, I can get that to you. But this is just an overview of what we were required to do and the section in the proposed ordinance of where we met that. The illicit discharge policy is the second number in this of passing through City Council. It essentially sets the criteria for when our department would do an inspection on a facility or a homeowner or whatever. This offers a measurable action level for chemical indicators, and it also offers guidance for physical and biological indicators when we're out in the field and we see a discoloration of an outfall or something like that. The recommendation is approval of the second reading and proposed stormwater ordinance and approval of the illicit discharge policy. Thank you.
Do I have questions from council? Yeah,
I
Billy.
have several. Shannon, thank you so much, and thank you for spending so much time on the telephone with me yesterday. I appreciate it.
No problem.
But my question right now is, as things stand right now, do we meet the state's mandate for our illicit discharge?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so the ordinance that you're putting before us would, we would meet the state mandate with
Yes.
this ordinance? Okay, that was one question. I wasn't at the last council meeting, but I watched it, and there were a couple of issues that seemed to get a lot of discussion. One was the bare minimums, and I didn't fully understand, because at that time I had not read all of this, but was that question answered when you had this next meeting with the committee?
Yes, ma'am, that's what the matrix provided, is essentially the bare minimum versus how we met that in our proposed ordinance.
Okay, so the committee members seem satisfied with the
Yes.
matrix and the answers to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the other topic that got a lot of discussion were less than 1 acre lots and who would be the responsible party for that. Was that addressed and answered at that time?
Yes, ma'am, really, we didn't have a lot of further comments regarding that less than 1 acre. We had a few developers that actually really agreed with that. So we didn't really discuss that further because that was not a comment that was really brought up in that final meeting.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Those are my
Welcome.
questions.
Lane, do you have any questions or
I
comments?
have 2 questions. One I discussed with Teresa already. I just wanted to verbalize it. The other one is, I just thought of this. If there is a vehicle in front of my house that I do not own, someone parks it there and has a major oil spill or the transmission flush, anything that's going to leak those fluids onto the ground, am I responsible since it's in front of my property, or are they responsible if we are unknown of who owns that vehicle?
You would not be responsible for that. You would not be responsible for a vehicle parked in front of your car that, in front of your house that have no idea who the owner is.
But if that vehicle leaves before it is reported and the oil discharge remains, who's responsible?
Technically, that's really I don't know how many gallons of oil a car holds. I'm not a mechanic, but about 5
gallons, yeah.
The reportable quantity to the state, I think, is about 10, or that's in a body. Well, Sheen in a body of water, but anyways, I digress. That's really a negligible thing. We do get calls like that. We respond, and if we can find someone and educate them, we do, and if we can't, then we handle that as part of our jobs for our stormwater program.
So there are numbers in effect of quantities on what is, I wouldn't say reportable, but reactable.
Yes, sir. That's what the illicit discharge document implements.
Okay.
And how does it describe it?
For oil?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it would
10 gallons.
basically be 10 gallons in a flow, essentially, where you could see that it did quite a bit of distance down the curb and gutter.
Any further questions?
That's the second one that I discussed with Teresa. Tenants and landlords, if a tenant is dumping oil or antifreeze out into the street, into the MS4, you would first go after the tenant. If they are unreachable, if they up and leave, or if they refuse to pay the fine, if they're responsible for it, even if I would have it spelled out in my lease, would they then come after me?
Yes, sir, that would be on the property owner. But the first measure of defense would just be compliance. And once compliance is reached, which is cleaning up, then it wouldn't extend on further to fines or any kinds of those things.
So there would be steps for me and any other landlord to take before it would be fined. It's not an automatic thing. Plus, we have the appeals process.
Correct. Yes,
for
sir.
me to go in place. Okay.
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes, Billy?
excuse me. Lane, in response to Lane's question, Shannon said something. You said educate. So is that the initial step in the process? I mean, the comment is made, go after somebody. But before you go after them, do you try to educate whoever the offender or violator is?
Yes, ma'am. Our number one goal is compliance, and a big portion of compliance with water quality regulations is just educating the public. So that's always our first line of defense.
Okay, thank you.
What are we going to do to educate?
For example, a lot of people just don't know that you shouldn't do that. And
I know,
so,
but how do we educate them?
well, when we get a complaint, we would go to a homeowner. Pretend it's a homeowner. It's very rare that it is, so I'd like to say that. But pretend it's a homeowner. Essentially, we would go out and say, did you know that we have a city code that prohibits discharge in this amount, and it is a potential pollutant to our surface waters, and were you aware? If you're not, well, here's why. And then if at that point it doesn't get resolved, then we would move on to our enforcement process.
So on a larger scale, let's say we're not leasing a house as a tenant, but we have an apartment complex of 200 apartments. And so the problem magnifies because all of a sudden it's 200 cars in a parking lot changing their oil.
That would be on the property owner. You know, if we couldn't get any response out of the citizens, 200 people changing their oil, and not only changing their oil, but discharging their oil onto the parking lot is highly unlikely.
Is there anything as it relates to, I'm going to change the oil in my car and I'm going to now throw the oil into the big dumpster that the apartment complex owns?
That's actually not a stormwater.
So once it goes into the trash, it's no longer stormwater.
It's not on the ground, so that's actually
Of course, they don't leak.
All right. That's an illegal waste disposal, but that's not stormwater.
Lucy?
I just wanted to ask you one more time. So the developers that were on the committee, they all came into agreement with this ordinance that y'all came up with at the end, correct?
Yes, ma'am. We felt like we came to a good understanding and a good middle ground to address their needs as well as meet our needs.
Tom, do you have a question? Tommy? No, Harry? All right, so the question is, all right, we're doing this because the state mandates it. So the state mandates all cities, right? But not all cities have these kinds of policies in place. So why is it San Angelo needs one in place if all cities comparable to San Angelo don't have these ordinances in place?
It's my understanding that every level 3 operator, which is what the city of San Angelo is, has to have illicit discharge, some sort of enforcement mechanism to be in compliance with state and federal regulation.
And this has been in place for how long on a state level?
The requirement for phase 1 was implemented in 2007 maybe, and 2006, and then for phase 2 was 2008, which the city of San Angelo got their permit in 2010, their initial permit.
But again, so cities our same size that don't have these policies, what makes us have to have one and another city not? What makes us unique, so unique and different that we have to have this in place?
I'm really unsure of any cities that are at our same level operator status that do not have illicit discharge program and ordinances or some sort of mechanism for enforcement.
All right, and we have an ordinance in place that currently states that it will be illegal for any discharge to happen. And so why do we need this level of an ordinance in place if we already had an ordinance in place?
I don't believe we have an illicit discharge ordinance in place.
All right. Teresa, yes.
What we do have in place is our nuisance ordinance, which has some language that's kind of similar. Nuisance is intended to be reactive. This stormwater provisions are intended to be more proactive. And the other thing that the nuisance ordinance does not have is, a big component of this has to do with the construction and looking at what they're already required to do. Our nuisance ordinance doesn't have that. We had those specific provisions already incorporated into our construction standards. So even though this document is 22 pages long.
Not 38.
Not 38, no, we numbered them.
What happened to the other pages?
We made it as simple and as short as possible. I like fewer words and whenever possible. So some of the provisions in here were already incorporated into the code in other places. So really the general provisions, which cover all of these things, is mostly definitions, and the illicit discharge section are the two sections of this ordinance that are new.
So we're going to go back through and clean up those things that are nuisance ordinances that have no teeth in them to ensure that this is the overriding document?
This is the overriding document for stormwater. We're going to still keep our nuisance ordinances because those deal with other concerns that are not necessarily related to stormwater. As far as those general conditions for construction, we have, if you'll look through this ordinance, deleted those from the development code and moved them over into this section, so they're not duplicated.
Mayor, I have
yes,
another
Billy?
question if I could. Shannon, we talked about this yesterday, but I believe it's on page 13 of the ordinance, and it talks about charges and fees. And I'm assuming that's for a violator that, as you start the process, the enforcement process, then there will be fees and charges. Are those in addition to the monthly stormwater fee that's currently on the water bill?
Those fees and charges are only for a violation, and they're separate from your utility stormwater fee.
Okay, so if a citizen asks me, one is for the water utilities and one is for stormwater. I mean, not stormwater, illicit discharge.
Yes, ma'am, non-compliance with that.
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
all right. Because I expect that we're going to get that question. I'm already paying a stormwater fee.
Right.
Why do I have to pay more for this illicit discharge? Thank you.
Problem.
But if it's not, there was the statement that mostly it is not residential, so why would the residentials ever have to pay more?
Pay
more for stormwater fees if the biggest issue is not residential, which was stated earlier.
Well, because it says, for the maintenance of stormwater, as you read in that, and it sounds like it's the same thing. When I read the ordinance for the illicit discharge, it sounds like those charges are covered under what I'm already paying when you just read that. And that's why I needed that clarification from Shannon.
And just to further clarify, that is only for an illicit discharge violation, not on general utility side.
So with this ordinance going into effect, as in all ordinances, the biggest issue is enforcement. So once we pass it, it seems like the work is done, but how do we enforce it? Because enforcement is always the biggest challenge. We've got a lot of things on the books that we don't have enough people to enforce. So here we go again. How many pages?
22.
22 pages of an ordinance that needs to be enforced. How do we enforce?
Well, the enforcement of this ordinance is really going to be based on a complaint and report. So, for example, a lot of times when we get spill calls or questions from the general public, we respond to that. And 90% of the time, we don't have an issue with compliance. So essentially, that's how it would be enforced. This isn't Ezra or myself riding around in city vehicles seeking out illicit discharges. It's strictly on a complaint or report basis.
Harry, did you have or somebody over here had a
I just
comment?
wanted Shannon to clarify, because Billy brought up some points that I think we need to know. This is a process, and until you get to the end, there is no fine. This is a long-term situation, and most everybody that wants to comply with this is going to take care of it long before we get to the fine spot. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But we have to have the 22 pages of an ordinance written.
Yes, sir,
for
just,
that.
just
Is
ma'am,
that
just in
correct?
case. Just in case we get a bad dude.
Here, I have a
Yes,
question.
please.
Shannon, do we have a place that we dispose our oil at?
There are, I think if you're a DIYer changing your oil, the oil changing facilities like Jiffy Lube and stuff like that do have oil recycling for the general public,
Okay.
but not for like a commercial.
No, I was just wondering.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, they do?
Okay, so I know I had another question, but I'll think of it in a minute. Do I have further questions or comments?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Do we have public comment? All of you that are out there, please come forward if you have further comments, because we're kind of at the end here.
Yes, Steve Hampton. Last time we had some, as Billy brought out, that it's apparently not written what the process is. This ordinance seems to be unfinished. I haven't read the whole thing.
22 pages?
Yeah. I read some of it last time.
And remember, it's down from 38, down from 98.
Really? Well, it
just
must
to be sure
better,
we're
yeah.
on the same
yes,
page.
Oh, it must be better, yeah. And so Billy says, Billy has brought out that it has not apparently been put in writing what the process is to how it's supposed to be involved or evolved and enforced. Last time I pointed out that it was real fuzzy, that section C, that it was up to somebody's opinion on what the fine might be, which I think is real fuzzy. Now that might be part of that was dropped. I don't know. So
No, there was nothing dropped. If I could address the question about the enforcement process, this is one of those situations where it's not like speeding, where everybody's going to be going 60 miles an hour over a speed limit the same way.
Right.
These violations occur in a lot of different ways. And so rather than having, we're going to talk to you, and then we're going to warn you, and then we're going to do this step and this step, we have essentially options for enforcement. And of course, we start with, as Shannon said, the education and just please clean this up option. So there's not a strict process. It's really going to depend on the particular situation. If it's somebody who just has a little bit of oil in front of their house, that's going to be a different process than if there's grease running down the street from a grease trap spill. We're going to go straight to abatement on that. So that's the reason there's not anything spelled out. We did add a couple of things. The appeal processes that we added, I think, address the concern that we're going to have some rogue stormwater person someday going out and just issuing notices of violation. So we did put appeal process for notice of violation. There is always the opportunity to take a citation to municipal court. That's still in here. There is always the opportunity to get enjoined through district court. And even once we get to the lien process, there's a process we included to appeal a lien. So we can't spell it out step by step just by the nature of this enforcement, but we do have a lot of opportunities for review built in.
okay, and does this the government is kind of like that TML resolution that we just visited. Anyway, can the government come by and come back and say, well, we want it tougher, and then we want it tougher, and we want it tougher, without us having any say-so in the matter?
As you know, I think this fits very neatly within that TML resolution. That this was something that was created at the federal level, which was handed down to the states, which was then mandated upon the cities. So as we go into our next permit cycle, there could very well be new provisions that we'll have to incorporate. We did build into this ordinance, however, we can't add anything even to our policies that add additional restrictions to the developers without bringing that back to this body. So this body will always have that say.
And if we do not implement this ordinance, what is the danger to us? What is the threat to us? Is there some kind of fine that apparently they're not enforcing.
They are actually enforcing. There are a number of cities who've received fines from the TCEQ related to the permit requirements. I believe the county has received fines. We have not received fines. I think that's in part due to the good job and the good relationship that our staff has with the TCEQ. Fines are always an option. They can start from the EPA onto the state, which can pass them down to us. So everybody at every level of this process has the opportunity or the ability to be fined for failure to participate in this program.
And I believe a part of, I'm sorry to keep going on, but
you're almost out of your 3 minutes.
Well, part of it was not mine.
Well, we'll go back and retime it by voice.
Restart that 3 minutes. Anyway, and last time there were developers that were trying to get around this size limit that they kind of glossed over. And they were, if it's an acre, they were making it 99.9 parts of an acre where they wouldn't be covered in the ordinance. I think that is important and should be addressed. Thank you.
Further public comment?
Mayor, my name's Tony Jones, and I am a builder and developer here in San Angelo. To say that the business community in San Angelo, Texas agrees with this is a bit disingenuous. Over a period of time, we essentially have been beat down by the attorneys and the engineers, okay? And so to say that the federal government and the state government requires all of the things that are in this document is a little bit of smoke and mirrors, okay? There are many, many ways that we as citizens of San Angelo, business people in San Angelo, could have and are meeting currently.
Tony, would you just speak into the mic a little bit more? Thank you.
Could have and are currently meeting the minimum standards for the TCEQ and the EPA. In our humble opinion, and I'm not an attorney, the code enforcement documents and the current codes that we have in place that would have enabled the city of San Angelo to go clean up Henry's and then fine them through code enforcement could have been amended to include stormwater enforcement for Shannon. She is in fact correct. She does need some enforcement ability in order to take care of any rogue people that come along. And so now she has that. And what the public, the city of San Angelo needs to know is that fees are going up. Not today, but they will go up. Shannon is severely understaffed. She's going to have more employees. She's going to have more equipment. And so just as long as the city and you as a council know that you're the ones that approve it, you're right and heard, you're responsible for this document and the fees that will come, not because they're required, but because they're by the state or federal government, because they're required by this document, you'll be responsible for that. And we appreciate the attorney, Ms. James. We appreciate engineering working with us and listening to us. Most of the safeguards in this documents would not be in there had we not held staff's feet to the fire. Thank you very much.
Billy?
Tony made a statement, and I'm just curious. Tony, you said that what's in the document is not state mandated, and I just wondered what you're saying is not state mandated that's in here.
A lot of these things, the way they're worded and the way they will have to be enforced are not mandated. The result of cleaner water is mandated, Ms. DeWitt, cleaner water. And since 2010, our water has been clean. Certainly the state comes in and sits down with Shannon and Mr. Pale and Ms. James, and they say, we want you to do more. At the end of the day, the resolution that you passed that gives us the ability to do what we think is appropriate stands here, okay? Shannon can say, Miss James can say, au contraire, our water's cleaner, we're doing the minimum, we're gonna do it the way we wanna do it, not the way you want us to do it. Because the state and the federal government is full of people that want more regulation, more rules, so that they have jobs, they have something to do at the end of the day.
Thank you. Yes, Daniel.
Mayor, if I may, you know, Tony, I don't disagree with you.
Daniel, may I add one thing?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
We have not been fined, that we know of. We have not been fined since we have implemented our stormwater, our original stormwater ordinance and plan. I don't know that I'm sure we've been threatened with fines, but the city of San Angelo has improved. And one other thing, Ms. James said that this document was intended to be reactionary, and then Ms. Shannon said it was the other way around. Shannon said that this is a reactionary document, and then Teresa said, no, this is an enforcement document. Two totally different things.
We're actually saying the same thing. I think what we're saying is that we're trying to prevent pollutants from getting into our rivers. That's what we're trying to do. Nuisance often doesn't apply until it's already there. So this is trying to keep it clean versus cleaning it up once it's clean.
I just wanted to, Tony, you want to say something else? Go ahead. I just wanted to point out, yes, we did that resolution a while ago, but we understand too that certain mandates do come through. We may hate them, we may really have an issue with it. But the truth is that these are laws that we are required at this point to enforce. It's not something that we can just turn a blind eye to and say, hey, we're just going to ignore these mandates by the state and the federal government. That's not something we can do. What we signed, as far as the resolution that we did a while ago, is to prohibit or to at least have some type of voice to ensure that that doesn't happen in the future. But right now, as those mandates do come through, that is something that the city does have to comply with.
Well, and I will agree that the resolution, at least for now, gives the citizens the power to come forth and say, we need to work with you and work this out. Thank God.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm further public comment.
Morning, Council. Rocky Templin, builder developer. I think there's a few statements, issues, questions that I have. Harry's comment was that this was long-term. My understanding, this could be as soon as from the time of something is found, 22 days later, you can have a lien against your property. This permit was in 2013, and within 2 years of the permit, these were supposed to be reviewed at that time, which was 2015. To my knowledge, we had an audit in 2016, which I don't know the result of the audit, but evidently we weren't fined. Nobody heard anything about it. So, and now here we are, the renewal, but I believe we actually have till April 13th of 2019 to actually renew our permit. On public awareness, I'd like to see how stormwater money, the public's money, could be used to aware the public. I think awareing the public one person at a time because there's an issue in front of your lot is not going to happen, you know, or your property. I think there was a little bit miscommunication on Lane's question. I think it was resolved, but it did say that if no person is found to have caused the violation, the owner of any property where the violation occurred and consequent contamination shall be responsible person for the required abatement, cleanup, remediation, and or restoration. That was in there. Billy brought up what I was going to bring up to make sure that it was section 11.03.02406, charges and fines, was strictly for violation purposes only. With all this that's going in, my biggest question is also, is this going to increase stormwater fees? I don't see how we cannot, with all this, that they're gonna have to enforce with the number of employees that they have. Thank you.
Rocky, what page was that on that you just quoted?
This one doesn't have pages, but I believe it was on 12. It was 11.03023C. Thank you.
Under the charges and fees, was that it, Rocky?
This is the top of page 13. If no person is found to have caused the violation, the owner of any property where the violation occurred and consequent contamination shall be the responsible person for the required abatement, cleanup, remediation, and/or restoration. And that is, as we discussed, that ultimately property ownership comes with benefits as well as responsibilities. And part of the unfortunate responsibility is if somebody dumps something on your property, whether that's a pile of lumber or it's a bucket of oil, you ultimately are the one who's responsible for that.
Thank you. Gary, did you want to come forward?
Council, Gary Cortez, developer, builder, citizen. I don't have a lot to add to what's already been said. The part about the MS4, which is your curb and gutter system in front of your property, if someone's dumps in that MS4 and drives off or whatever, and it's not the property owner's responsibility, I did like to hear that, I really did, but the rule of law would say that that property owner owns to the middle of the street. And code enforcement and alleys, you own to the middle of the alley. So I did like to hear when she said, no, that if someone parks in front of your house and, I don't know, whatever could happen to go wrong to trigger this, and then drives off and we don't have a suspect, that the homeowner is not going to be responsible for that. If that's the way that's going to be enforced, I'm okay with that. But
It's not written that way, though.
But the rule of law states you own to the middle of the street. It's part of the strips and gores laws. But, where do you start? Where do you stop? Some about this, and it just came to me as I was sitting there, and I don't know, someone dumps an excessive amount of illicit discharges onto your vacant lot that you inherited from whoever in your family, and it's so much that you can't afford the cleanup, and you're getting cited. I've often wondered that she read the law that the property owner is responsible for it. That's a true law. I just always often wondered, with that law being in place, if something's in excess that most people couldn't afford to clean up, would the city come in and help them with something in excess of whatever, dollar amount of whatever's in there, instead of putting it on the property owner, mercury, whatever. Somebody else throws a bunch of old fluorescent light bulbs on there and mercury in them, and you get in all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of scenarios you can paint in your mind about some of this that just falls on that property owner. That's scary. And I don't know, I could go on, but why? Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Teresa, would you mind addressing the middle of the street that he just brought up as far as owning to the middle of the street?
Right, the middle of the street, the city maintains the streets,
right.
and so we take care of that. As far as the alley's concerned, there is a provision within the nuisance ordinance that does make property owners responsible for high grass and weeds to the center of the alley, but I would have to look it up to know for sure, but I don't remember that applying to anything other than high grass and weeds.
What I want to make sure we don't do is, by bringing up some of these challenges and issues, is to get even more heavy-handed and then go back to a 98-page document that I don't think we need. I'm not sure we need this one, but we've got it in front of us to discuss today. But it does go back to our home, our decisions, and I want to make sure that what we don't do by passing this ordinance is to once again say it's mandated, we have no choice. Is this really mandated by the state, or is this our choice to put before this city council to pass?
It is a mandate. It is a mandate, it is a requirement. It's a requirement under our level 3 operator status. To go back to one of the public comments, it was regarding an audit that was done by TCEQ in 2016. The way they do those is a records audit or a application audit. The records audit that was completed was on our construction enforcement program, and we were actually cited violations for non-compliance.
We were issued a violation of noncompliance.
Yes, ma'am, in 2016 for not following the construction enforcement side.
And what happened with that?
We resolved the violation by changing our internal program and how we did our records, and essentially we implemented an internal procedure for construction inspections and an enforcement process.
Do I have further public comment?
My name is Jerry Demo, and I was an engineer on the committee meeting. And all I got to say is, based on what I've seen and what I heard, I believe this ordinance needs to be passed.
Thank you. Do I have further public comment? With no further public comment, we have before us a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor of approving?
Mayor.
Oh, yes, Billy.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Speak
It
now or
just-
forget. You know
thank
you're
you.
going to be regretting it.
I guess I need Teresa or maybe Daniel to say, if we do not pass this ordinance, what happens? Where are we?
You know, it's one of those situations where we know we're out of compliance regarding this. This is a very clear requirement in the permit that we have not met yet.
What does that say in the, what's
Do you
the
have a copy
language
of the
that you're
permit?
quoting?
I broke it down into a matrix, but essentially the first line under the legal authority document that was provided, that was read in the last council meeting, essentially says that municipalities have to pass some sort of enforceability action authority for illicit discharges. So if a municipality doesn't have ordinances in place, but they do some other type of enforcement ability, then they can use that. But it's to my knowledge, and from the way Teresa explained it to me, is that our enforceability is through enacting ordinances. So just to go over that language again, would you like me to read that, or do you feel like I answered that question?
Billy, do you want to
Could you read it again, please?
Sure, no problem. Sure. Print it off a whole bunch, so. So the first authority was authority to prohibit illicit discharges and illicit connections, authority to respond to and contain other releases, control the discharge of spills, prohibit dumping or disposal of materials other than stormwater into the MS4, authority to require compliance with conditions in the permittee's ordinances, permits, contracts, or orders, authority to require installation, implementation, and maintenance of control measures, authority to receive and collect information such as stormwater plans, inspection reports, and other information deemed necessary to assess compliance with this permit from operators of construction sites, new or redeveloped land, and industrial and commercial facilities. Authority as needed to enter and inspect private property, including facilities, equipment, practices, or operations related to stormwater discharges to the small MS4. Authority to respond to noncompliance with BMPs required by the small MS4 consistent with their ordinances or other regulatory mechanisms. Authority to assess penalties, including monetary, civil, or criminal penalties, and the ability to enter into interagency or interlocal agreements or other maintenance agreements as necessary. That one was listed as not applicable because we have that listed in a different section of our Code of Ordinances. And to the right of that is how we address that in this proposed ordinance.
So this document that I have here, that's 22 pages, is in response to this mandate that
Yes.
I have right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I just want to comment, Mayor.
Yes, please.
I guess what troubles me is that these committee meetings are held, and it seems like everybody walks away thinking issues are resolved, and then we come here and issues obviously aren't resolved. And I don't know, and maybe Teresa can tell me from a legal perspective, I think we have to have something in place. I don't see how we can not, and this is what we have right now, and we're out of time because our deadline is what?
December 13th.
Okay, so we're under tomorrow's deadline. We need to have something, in place. And I, like most citizens, if I could just have a minute to get on my soapbox, I, like most citizens, do not want more regulations put on what I can do, what I have to do, what I can't do. But some regulations are necessary. And I look at what in the last week we've had a recall on beef because of we've reduced the regulation on how our meat processing is regulated. We've had the recall on all that lettuce. I'm afraid to eat a salad when I go out because we had a recall because of the reduced regulations on that. And so some regulations are going to be necessary. This is a city, we want it to continue to be the very best city that it can be. And if we need to do this to be in compliance with the mandate that we're given, we may not all like it. And Gary made a very good point because I own some vacant lots. And if, somebody in the middle of the night comes in and dumps a lot of stuff on it and I have to clean it up, I am not going to be a happy camper. And I'm going to be asking somebody, for some help. But, I don't think we can cover every situation, every instance of what if. I mean, we can't live our lives like that, so we can't cover every what if. So for me, right now, this is what we have. We have a deadline of tomorrow or we're out of compliance. And so I appreciate Shannon so much all the time and everything that you have put into this. Mr. Reese, I appreciate yours. And I appreciate everybody that worked on that committee. I appreciate what they did. I think we have a regulation. They've worked hard to put it together. And I think we just need to vote on it and move. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, so we have a motion, a second. We've had public comment. We've had a soapbox opportunity. And so now it must be time to vote. All right, all those in favor of passing this, vote, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, aye. Motion passes 4-2. 5-2, sorry. Item C, consider approval and public hearing of the 2017 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPER, presented by Bob Salas.
Give us good news, Bob. Give us some good news.
All right.
No, just give us something that's not
A
about
lighten us up
regulation.
or something.
Does this work?
Just, if it's mandated, don't present it today.
All right. It's not mandated. Bob Salas, Neighborhood Family Services, Mayor Council. The CAPER is a HUD requirement that is due at the end of this year.
A mandate. Requirement equals.
But it's for me. It's
And
my
this one,
mandate.
this one comes with funding.
Yeah,
The other
they
was
give us money.
unfunded. Bob gets funding.
It is
Yeah, but
funded
sometimes
Monday.
if we get it and it gets funding, we're doing things we don't need to do. We just got the money, so.
That's correct. It covers both CDBG and home grant funds for the 2017 program year. It spans October the 1st, 2017 through September 30, 2018. The main purpose is to outline expenditure of funds, identify accomplishments, and address key interest items. The report is somewhat detailed,
and it covers a variety of things such as resources and accomplishments, geographic distribution of funds, affordable housing for homeless and special needs, barriers to affordable housing, lead-based pain abatement, and citizen participation. This is a quick snapshot of the funds we have for the year and how much we spent. For home, I'm sorry, that should be reversed. That should be CDBG. It's 718. I don't know how that happened. My slide says CDBG here, so it's actually switched those. CDBG is 718,000. Home funds, we received 286,000. The funds expended were 674,000 for CDBG and 279,000 of home funds.
BG, I can't say that real
CDBG?
fast. Says what? It stands for what?
It's for a Community Development Block Grant. That's what that is.
Thank you.
That's the main grant that we get every year.
Okay, thank
It funds a lot of our programs. And talking about CDBG accomplishments, these next few slides kind of cover the accomplishments for the year, which is required for us to let the public know. We completed 4 homeowner rehabs through the Helping Hands program that Galley CDC managed. We provided $25,000 last year for them. We completed 56 emergency repairs, expending over $167,000. We worked over 5,000 code compliance cases in neighborhoods targeted for revitalization. 50 families at risk of becoming homeless were assisted with their rent or mortgage payments to keep them in their homes. And then we paid our annual Section 108 loan for Producers Park. On the home front, we assisted 8 families with down payment and closing costs to purchase their first home, expending over $89,000. We assisted 29 special needs individuals with rental payments, expending over $63,000. And then our CHOTA, which is Galley CDC, built 5 new homes and expended $99,000 of home grant funds. And then in our non-grant fund accomplishments, 10 homes were weatherized with our annual ADMAS funds. 6 families were assisted with gap financing for the purchase of their new home through the COSA DC Affordable Housing Program. And then 16 indigent individuals were cremated. We spent $14,000 for those 16, and the other $4,000 we spent on 4 plots.
You mean?
18.
I'm sorry, 18. Well, it's 14 for the cremation and 4,000 for the plots that we have to buy every year. We buy those. We go through our Fairmont Cemetery, and we basically intern 6 cremains per plot is what we do, with a little marker identifying who they are and the date of when they passed. So, and we, like any other program that's federally funded, we need to come up with a citizen participation plan, which we did, and it includes getting input from citizens through meetings like council meetings today, advertising like we do at Center Times, and then we provided copies of the caper throughout the city, rec centers, libraries, senior citizens, and other places like the city's website. And we're asking council to approve it so we can send it to HUD to meet their mandate.
So we're approving. Thank you. The language, the wording is quite important here.
Yes, it is.
Do I have any questions from council for Bob?
I have a couple. Bob, on a couple of the goals, you didn't quite complete those goals. Anything in particular, for instance, the 15 homes was the goal for weatherization. You completed 10. Was that because 10 was all you got, or?
It's a little combination of both. One is funding. And for example, ADMAS is very limited how much they give us.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to figure that out. It's also people coming through the door. We don't get the clients. If the clients come in, we have money, we do it. If they don't come in, we don't spend the money, obviously. So that has to do with clientele, number of clientele, and funding too. A little combination of both.
Well, the other thing, and this is Lucy's district, and she always reminds me, but I just want to say kudos. The article in last Friday's paper was very heartwarming. The woman with the 3 children that was living in a household of 9 people that was able to get into one of the transitional houses. you know, that's to me what San Angelo and the caring is all about. And I know you're a part of working with Galilee Community Development and our homeless coalition and everything, and that's just really heartwarming. So when we talk about how we get information out, what it said in the article was that there was a flyer passed out at school that this little girl then gave to her mother, and now she's able to move into one of those brand new homes. So just kudos on that. I think that Jeremiah project plan is great. Harry and I happened to be there for the ribbon cutting and got a chance to tour those homes, and they are really, really nice. In fact, I'm following up with the contractor on one of the bathroom designs. So, really nice homes.
Yes,
Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? So we need action on this. So do I have a motion to accept the information as presented by Bob Salas?
So moved.
Any public comment? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Mayor, you won't let me miss another meeting because I just keep getting on these soapboxes.
Your voice is very important to be heard, so we appreciate your thoughtfulness and your comments. I am, before Tina starts on this report, I have to leave for about 30 minutes, so talk slowly. Or we can take a break and come back. And I would think for everybody in the audience, it would be great if I just leave and come back and you make your presentation. I'll be back. You can go ahead and start.
Okay.
Yes,
do you
please.
want to read the agenda item, or are we?
Okay, I'll do that.
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. The item is item D, which is an update on fiscal year 2018 preliminary year-end financial results. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning, Council, Mr. Valenzuela. I'm going to give a brief update this morning on the financial performance of the city's major operating funds. It's important to note that all of these amounts and information that we're providing this morning are unaudited, and they do include the carryovers that you approved earlier this morning. All of our major operating funds have performed well this year with the information that we have available today, but we do know that we'll have some further adjustments, reversals, accruals, and some more audit adjustments. So we just want to make that very clear going into this presentation. Oops. So in our general fund, you can see that we had revenue that exceeded what we had planned in our budget, and total expenditures that were well below what we planned to expend in the general fund as well. So good financial performance there. There we go. So, and then the water fund, our total revenue exceeded our budget by $2.3 million. Total expenditure was under budget by $2.2 million. Water reclamation, total revenue exceeded budget by about $1.2 million, while total expenditures were under budget by $700,000. Solid waste revenue was over budget by $97,000, while our total expenditures were under budget by $582,000. In stormwater, total revenue was under budget just slightly at $5.5 thousand, while total expenditures were under budget by $486,000. For airport, we were over our budget for revenue by $57,000 and under our expenditure budget for $102,000. Hotel occupancy tax, we were over budget for our revenue this year by $288,000, while our expenditures were under budget by $13,000. For civic events, total revenue was over budget by $301,000. Total expenditures under budget by $91,000. Total revenue in the Fort Concho Fund was under just slightly at $5,300, but also had total expenditures under budget of $97,000. And then total revenue in state office building was under the revenue budget by $49,000 with a corresponding under budget for expenditure of $44,000. So that's the information we have to provide to you. We think it's a good outlook right now. Of course, like I said, we do have some further adjustments to make for year ends. And of course, all of that will be audited through our annual financial statement audit. Do you have any questions on that information?
I don't have any questions.
I have a question. Tina, could you go back to the civic events?
Yes, ma'am.
So they were over revenue, 301,000, and under expenditure. Carl is here. Carl, can you share with us on the revenue being so much over what it?
I can actually speak
Okay.
to that. It most likely correlates directly with the increase to our hotel occupancy tax because they are on a percentage basis and get 48% of that total hotel occupancy tax revenue. And so we budgeted for a certain amount in hotel occupancy tax fund,
Okay,
and since that was over budget,
Okay,
the corresponding revenue budget in civic events would be over as well.
very good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any other council questions? Do you have a motion?
I move to approve as presented.
It's just an update at this point. There's no.
Oh, we don't have to.
No, we don't have to. I do want to thank Tina, of course, and we heard a lot of over revenue under the expenditure. That's exactly what we want to hear. So
Yes.
thanks for that presentation, Tina.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Why they won the award.
We will now move into closed session. Executive session under provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government, Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exception to the requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. Section A, Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. A governmental body may conduct a closed meeting to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberation in an open meeting would be detrimental effect of the position of the governmental body in negotiations with a third person regarding Lot 1, Group 7, Lake Nasworthy Addition, and P. Kurzenacher, S. 0647, A-1566, and J.J. Schaefer, S. 0646, A-1882. Section 551.0712, consultation with attorney. A governmental body may conduct a closed meeting with the governmental body seeks the advice of the attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney of the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the chapter regarding water rights and contracts for Lake Nasworthy, the solid waste contract, annual drag boat races, and letter C, section 551.074A1, to deliberate the appointment of the city clerk. About an hour?
I would say about an hour and 15 minutes. Yeah, that'd be
15
right.
minutes.
Yeah.
We're in closed session.
So we will call this meeting back to order following the closed session at 12:54 p.m. on December the 11th, 2018. We are going to follow up on the administrative issues and consider the items discussed in executive session. The first announcement that I am going to make is that we have, I would like to ask for a motion to be made to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute an amendment to the solid waste contract between Republic Services and the City of San Angelo that modifies Exhibit G, outlining the acceptable recycling materials. Do I have a motion? Any public comment?
Steve Hampton, what are those acceptable recyclable materials?
The recyclable materials that are acceptable are newspapers. No, I'm on the wrong page. I'm sorry, that was exactly wrong. The acceptable recycling material will be corrugated cardboard, flattened, box boards, cereal boxes, frozen food boxes, plastic containers number 1 and number 2, excluding styrofoam, steel and tin cans, aluminum cans, and empty aerosol cans. So basically, the changes in terms of recycling materials will be no longer accepted newspapers and inserts, magazines, mail, mixed paper, and catalogs, and we will accept only 1 and 2 bottles, plastic bottles, 3 through 7, not acceptable going forward. Or, as we say, negotiated by the city manager with Republic Services.
And Anthony will be doing a press release outlining those items.
The dates and everything are the same?
Yes, sir.
Cup. Thank you.
No changes. With that, any further public comment? If there's no more further public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, it passes 7-0. Additional items to bring forward. Lane, do you have an announcement, please?
A motion authorizing the city manager to appoint Julia Antley as city clerk.
Second.
Any public comment? Oh,
Belabor this meeting just a little bit longer if y'all bear with me. You know, thinking about sports analogies a little bit and how important it is to have somebody that can come in and win a couple of games. And I think you found that with Julia. She's hit out of the park, and I think you found your next franchise quarterback, and you could ask the Redskins how important that might be right now. But, you know, and it's not just with Julia, who I think the world of. I think she's going to be probably the best city clerk we've ever had.
or equal to the past city clerk.
Probably the best. I'm going to say best. And I'd also like to say something about Mitch Sprunger, who has been, you know, acting as the airport director. And I think he's won several games until we could get somebody hired. And so I just wanted to brag on the staff and just congratulate, you know, some of these successes that we've had recently and being able to bridge these gaps. So.
Well, I think we also should say that Mitch pulled his name out of consideration, so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We want to make sure we say that versus him not getting the job. He asked to not be considered for the job, and that's an important statement to be made.
Absolutely, but you know, I was just focusing on the thing that, you know, when the ship needed to be ran, and you know, there was a little bit of turnover even underneath him, but he kept that thing on board and kept it, you know, focused true north, and he's to be congratulated for that as well.
Thank you for that.
So.
All right. With that, are there any further announcements in consideration of future
that,
agenda?
we do need a vote.
Well, I think we always said we like it.
Already clapping there.
Okay, so we had a motion, a second. We have public comment and a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
it's wonderful,
Congratulations,
absolutely.
Julia. And now with that, the announcement is Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And consideration of future agenda items, we'll talk about after the first of the year.
All right.
Move we
Okay.
adjourn. That, we remember the
Second.
dates on.
All righty, thank you very much.
Dates on the January meetings
Oh,
are different, right?
8th and 22nd.
8 and 22nd.
Okay.
We're good.
All righty,
Merry Christmas,
motion adjourned. Merry Christmas.
Well, Merry Christmas,
Happy New Year.
Mayor and council, and maybe I'll run into you.
We all agree on something.